I'll give you some tips. If you're thinking about reading this book, I'll give you some tips on this, right? Because it took me 2 years to read this, um, and the reason I'll give you some tips is it's not an easy read. It's not an easy book to read. Um, the main thing, number one, choose your version carefully, right? The Bible, whatever version you read in English, is a translation. And there were several different versions of, or several different translations of this book. So if you want to read it, choose a translation that is okay for you to understand and that is interesting. The other thing you need to understand is that translations are biased. They come with their own belief system, right? Because somebody's translating the words according to what they understand. So you need to pick a version of the Bible that sits well with you. I read the RSI. It's part of the Rainbow Bible of Study. I really enjoyed this version. It was really easy to understand. I would recommend this version to anyone. If you're wondering, oh, well, what is the difference of this? Well, put it this way: some versions call sexual immorality, translate certain parts of the Bible as sexual immorality, but while other versions outright translate it as homosexuality. So there is this like nuances of language and linguistics that you need to watch out for. So pick a version that is aligned to your taste, is easy enough for you to read and understand. And then I come into point two. If you picked a version and you read anything on this book that you don't understand, do your research. Okay, you need to sort of. I would recommend going back to the original and trying to find different versions or different translations to the original text. Really understanding that this is being written in another language, and that the context, the time that it was written in, and the words that were used back then are not the same words that you use today. So, if there is anything that you don't understand or you question, try to find the original, or a translation that talks about the original, or a study that talks about the original translation, and then work from there, right? Check different versions, check the references. This Bible is great because it has a whole section at the back of it. I will show you my notes, right? This is what happened when I started it. This is all the notes that I've made of things that I didn't understand and I'm going to research further, right? This Bible is a study Bible, so it has a whole subject guide in the background. This whole section at the back of this Bible is a study, notes, connections in between stories. There is even sort of maps and timetables for you to understand, or timelines for you to understand how it happens, which nicely gets me into point three. The Bible is not in chronological order, right? So it flips back and forth in between time and bits of the story. It also overlaps, some of the books overlap. I always had it in my mind that it was in chronological order, right? So when I started reading it, it became very confusing until I understood that it wasn't. And I had to actually draw a timeline for me to understand how the books connected to each other, right? So just keep that in mind, that it's not in chronological order. If you have a belief, if you a Christian or you believe in prayer, pray before you read it, because you need some discernment and understanding. It's not particularly an easy book to read, and because it's not a particular book to read, book to read, I actually come across a lot of resource that I would recommend. In my written article, which is connected to this post, I actually list the sort of articles and things that I sort of dipped into to try to understand things better. The one thing I would suggest is the Bible Project on YouTube has several videos that explain the books, and sort of digest it a little bit, make it a little bit easier to understand. Would definitely recommend them if you're struggling on understanding anything that you're reading. So the Bible Project on YouTube, definitely worth a check. And there was other more controversial things that I read and sort of played with, or went into when I was trying to find connections with other things. So I'm not going to share them here because I don't want to dispute or get into an argument with anybody. But there are several resources out there that you can sort of work with and that are there to help you understand it better.